Hey guys, it's Yorkie here and welcome to another Assetto Corsa Competizione video with some more racing with LFM at Bathurst Mount Panorama. As you can see, we're starting in P3 and strap yourselves in for what is going to be quite an interesting race because up in the top right hand corner in the next 30 minutes we've got some rain on the way. But just quickly before we get into the main action of this video, if you didn't see the previous video, the channel has now been sponsored by Garage 44, which is an online shop that sells motorsport and racing related merch, as you can see very nicely modelled by myself here. Down in the description is an affiliate link which will take you to the garage44.co.uk website where you can find art prints and t-shirts to purchase. Using that link I will get a commission, so your support there will be very much appreciated. And when it comes to purchasing your products, make sure to use code YORKIE10 in order to get a 10% discount on your basket. So yeah, an exciting little announcement for the channel here, and thanks once again to Garage 44 for the sponsor. So, back to the video, and here is the car setup that I'm going to be running. I don't think there's any real changes from the previous video. Everything all looks fairly good here. Obviously, a little bit more fuel this time round. We're going to be starting off with the dry tyres. Everything here looks about the same. The only change might be the preload diff. That might have changed since the last video, but otherwise everything else is all the same, and yeah, still running 58 on the rear rather than the 60mm that I had advised in the previous video as well. So what we're going to very quickly do is just wait until the very last moment to get ourselves back onto the grid, and obviously we're going to hit the drive button just in those final seconds and prepare ourselves for the race start. So in less than 30 minutes time we are going to get the rain coming and hitting the circuit, which is going to be interesting here in this 25-minute race. Don't know exactly when in those next 30 minutes, but we'll soon find out when it ticks over to the 10-minute mark. But anyway, rolling start, P3, just getting ourselves ready, dragging the brake a little bit, trying to generate a bit of brake temperature. Now we'll get the speed matched up quite nicely, right ready for the green light, and there it is. Hopefully we get ourselves a decent launch, and it looks like it is. We're already starting to pull up alongside P2, so that's going quite well, just being nice and smooth through the first turn here, giving some room to the previous P2 on the exit there of the first corner, and it looks like we pretty much get in the position just slowly eking ahead of the Mercedes to take that second place. They're obviously right there, so I'm going to move over to the right hand side of the circuit just to cover off the inside and prevent them from making a move down there as we come into turn 2. And P1 have got themselves quite a nice gap already, as you can see, a good 4 or 5 car lengths out there, just under a second, as they're able to really accelerate off of turn 1 quite nicely, using all the room on the outside there with no cars on their outside, and therefore gained a little bit of an advantage. So over the top of the mountain section we go for the first time. Nice and smooth through here, not really taking too much risk at this stage. Just need to settle into the race and see what we can do and kind of plan for the future with this rain that is going to be coming at some point, most likely in the duration of this 25-minute race. So coming down through the S is the dipper and now into Forest Elbow, everything all nice and smooth, looking all good there, good clean exit, and it looks like we've lost about 0.3 of a second to the Lamborghini in front over across the top of the mountain, so they've extended the gap to just over a second, but we've got ourselves a 0.8 second gap to the Mercedes behind, which is fairly good in a straight line, but just like the previous video, our car's got some good straight line speed as well, so let's make use of that here in the third and first sector. Nice smooth run coming through the chase, and we've gone and regained those 0.3 seconds that we lost to the Lamborghini over the top of the mountain. So we now come into the final corner and begin lap 2. So across the line we go. Now into turn 1. A good smooth run here. So we're continuing to close this gap down onto the Lamborghini. 0.7 seconds, it was momentarily 0.6. We had a good run through that first corner there. Just trying to sit in any sort of slipstream that I could possibly get. I'm not entirely sure what the distance is in order to be benefiting from the slipstream of the car in front, but as it was less than a second, thought I'd follow them in the same tracks and hopefully get a little bit on the straight. Good smooth run there through the Audi cutting, gap to half a second now. And it's in this section here that I tend to struggle. I managed to keep it flat through the right hander there. Now coming down into the grate, slight lift and breathe on the throttle, just about managing to keep off the wall on the exit. Good run through McPhillamy. We've got a nice bit of rotation through the mid corner, and that worked quite nicely. Come down through Skyline, now into the dipper. Gap's 0.6 seconds, so we're fairly even, back to 0.5. Fairly even between ourselves and the Lamborghini in front, which is good, and we're pulling away from the Mercedes behind as well. So now, let's try and eat up any sort of slipstream that we could possibly get here. Help try and close this gap up to the Lamborghini a bit more. See if we can start applying some pressure to the current race leader. The gap is now 0.4 of a second, just opening up the entrance to the chase here a little bit more for myself before getting hard on the brakes, getting the car slowed down, floating it very nicely through the chicane there. And the gap within half a second, you can see the gap to the Mercedes behind is now 1.7 seconds, so things have gone very well for us here on the opening 2 laps, gaining a position and pulling away a little bit hairy there on the exit of the final corner, but going to set the fastest lap of the race so far, 2:01.6, which is very good considering the car is, it's not full of fuel, but there's a good amount of fuel on board in order to do the full race distance. See though, my rhythm has been hurt a little bit by the exit of that final corner, and didn't exactly have the best runs through turn 1, and we've lost a little bit of ground to the Lamborghini up in front. But still, we're holding pace, keeping good, and then we can see within the next 10 minutes we are going to be getting rain. So rain is definitely going to have an impact here in this race. So my mind is very much thinking about the overall strategy. I know I'm pretty good in wet weather conditions, and I'm also pretty good in kind of the changing crossover conditions as well, as we're struggling to hook up the top of the mountain section here, and you can see gap now over a second to the Lamborghini in front, losing a good half a second over the first half of this lap. So we actually launched the car off the dip of that, and the Mercedes is closed in because of that as well to within a second. But yeah, my mind is thinking about the strategy and how I could possibly use the wet weather to my advantage. Key thing here is obviously it's only a 25-minute sprint race, and it's only really going to be in the last 10 to 12 minutes or so that we're going to be seeing any sort of rain. So I don't think, because the rain is going to be quite light when it arrives, although it is going to be getting heavier there indicated in 30 minutes time, but obviously the race is ended by then. But yeah, as the rain is only going to be relatively light, I don't think going to the wet tyre is going to be worth it. It's going to be 30 seconds just to change the tyres alone, and then you're going to lose another good 15, 20, maybe 25 seconds. The pit lane isn't too long here at Bathurst. It's quite a short pit lane, but you're still losing a good amount of time to anyone who's staying on the dry tyres. And generally, 10 minutes, you're going to do 5-6 laps. So even if we're gaining at a rate of 5-6 seconds per lap, it's not going to be enough to make up the deficit that you would lose by changing tyres. So in my mind, the best strategy that I'm thinking is to stay on the dry tyres when the rain comes, and just try and slug it out, try and keep the car on track, and hopefully we can have a better time than some of the other drivers, be able to make use of my skills there and try and make the difference in order to hopefully pick off P1 and pull away from the Mercedes behind, who is rather close. 0.2 seconds, and you can see he's kind of there lurking on the very edge of the radar at the top centre of the screen. Probably see him as we close back, as we slow down here. There we go, just popping up momentarily there. Obviously not having the best previous lap, and this lap has certainly been better. Only a 10th off of my previous best, but still losing ground to the other cars around me. So jumping forward in time, we're back over the top of the mountain. Not much has really changed. Lost a little bit of ground to the Lamborghini in front, gained a little bit of ground to the Mercedes behind, but we have this slight mistake here going through McPhillamy Park. Just running out a little bit wide over the grass. Nothing too major happening, but obviously that's going to cost me time. Also very tight there going through the dipper and very close to the wall. It's definitely going to hurt the momentum, and as you can see in the top left hand corner we are losing more lap time. So again, jumping ahead to, which I believe is a lap later, you can see the Mercedes is 0.2 seconds right behind us there in the rear view mirror as we come through Quarry Corner, turn 2. 2.3 seconds to the Lamborghini up in front, coming through the cutting. Nice and smooth there. We seem to be on a pretty good lap at the moment, pretty much bang level with our previous fastest lap, providing we can keep things solid over the top of the mountain here this time round. Nice smooth run there, coming through the grate now into McPhillamy's, just a slight breathe on the throttle before applying it hard again, this time not running out wide, now just coming down into Skyline, down through the gears, and the Lamborghini in front is going to make contact with the wall. There it is on the inside, car breaking loose and slipping on past. So does P3, now up into P2, and you can see up in the top right exactly what happened to the Lamborghini. Just got offline and then lost the rear end into the wall on one side, and that kind of put them into a half spin going into the other. Quite heavy suspension damage, as you'll see, not really turning enough and making more contact with the wall again whilst trying to stay out of the way of P4, 5, and that's very unfortunate for them, taking them out of the race, but that's gifted us the race lead as we once again jump forward by another lap. So 11.5 minutes remaining. You can see the Mercedes is still pretty close behind, 0.5 seconds. We've got a back marker 4 seconds up the road there, just going over the crest, coming over or along Conrad Straight. Just watching the Mercedes behind us there in my slipstream, just seeing how much they're closing as we're approaching the braking zone for the chase here. They're not anywhere near close enough to make a move, but I go and make that mistake there, braking a little bit too deep, missing the apex by quite some margin. Now I'm having to go defensive coming into the final corner here, forcing the Mercedes to go to the outside, and just as we come into the braking zone, we do have the rain arriving. This is crucial time now to proper settle down as I go and accidentally press the wrong button there, cycling through the lights rather than flicking the windscreen wiper on. Just a slight brush with the outside curb, but from here on out I know that I've got about 30 seconds or so of being able to use curbs before it gets too wet and the curves become a little bit too slippery. So now is the time to really knuckle down and see if we can try and extend the gap to the Mercedes behind, using second gear rather than third that time, going through turn 2 just to help keep the car nosed in towards the apex. We're going to use first gear here as well just to help a little bit more, because as each second passes and the rain continues to fall, we're going to be losing grip. So it's all about not pushing the car too hard. You can see the temperature in the tyres on the surface is disappearing as the water is starting to build up. And I think the Mercedes behind is very much using me as a bit of a yardstick, a bit of a measure as to how much they can push going through the corners. So I've definitely got to be under the limit here. It's just how much under the limit do I go? How much do we kind of try and trick P2 into making a mistake? Obviously with that comes risk, so I've got to be smooth, I just got to be precise and hope that they make their own mistakes. Just give a flash of the lights there to the back marker up in front, who we've caught quite quickly over the course of this previous lap. Obviously able to push a little bit harder, but you can definitely see temperature is disappearing from the tyres, especially on the left hand side. It's going to be a little bit risky here coming into the first heavy braking zone. We make it quite nicely as the Porsche is getting very loose, and there's also another back marker further up a field up the road, which is actually the previous P1 before they had their unfortunate mistake coming down through the S section and bounced and clobbered through the walls. So I've given them a flash of the lights. They get very nicely out of my way here before turn 1, so thank you very much to them, and obviously commiserations on their unfortunate mishap that they had. But we're 1.2 1.3 seconds to the Mercedes behind now, so we're obviously judging the conditions a little bit better than them. In the next 10 minutes the rain is going to get heavier, so that may be a factor come towards the end of the race, but we just need to keep the car on the straight and narrow, keep ourselves out of trouble, keep the nose clean, as this is very much our race to lose at this stage. You can see I've adjusted the traction control and ABS settings as well, obviously increased those to try and minimise any sort of wheel slip, both going into and coming out the exit of the corner. I've also warped the brake bias back further as well to avoid the front, try and reduce the chance of the front wheels locking up. But you can see how much we're having to lift off, and that was almost a costly mistake there, coming through McPhillamy once again, finding the outside curb as the car was just understeering, not wanting to turn in and rotate through the corner like it would when it managed to hook up the turn in the dry, and you can see the car snaking around at the rear, just trying to apply the power. So definitely quite a bit more water build up on the surface of the track as the car not wanting to rotate there, coming through Forest Elbow. We still managed to maintain that 1.3 seconds though to the Mercedes behind, and on this straight section here, as we build the speed, the downforce acting should give us a little bit more grip. Shouldn't be any real aquaplaning along this section, so as long as there's no major puddle build up we're going to be good, but the puddles will take quite a bit longer to form as the rainfall hasn't been heavy enough as of yet. So once again the rear end getting a little bit loose there as we try and apply the power, but we are eking the gap out to the Mercedes, almost 2 seconds now as we come into this final turn. So feeling a little bit more confident in these kind of conditions, things going a little bit better. And again, as I was talking about earlier, the strategy that I'm going with here is staying out on these wet tyres, because we've now only just over 6 minutes remaining in the race. If I was to stop now, I'm going to go ahead and lose at least 45, 50 odd seconds, and my lap times are 2:12 on the previous lap. They are going to get slower obviously as the rain continues to fall, but big slide there coming through turn 2 as the rear wasn't quite gripping as much as the front, but we managed to hold on to it and get away with that one. But yeah, we're only 11 seconds a lap slower at the moment compared to the dry conditions, and obviously I'm not going to be able to make up that time in the amount of time and the number of laps remaining if I was to go into the pits and switch to the wet tyres. So we're sticking it out on the slick tyres at the moment. Things aren't too bad. Obviously we're having to be careful, as you can see, really lifting quite heavily as we come through Solomon's part there, and now into McPhillamy's, way slower than what we'd be doing in the dry conditions. But I'm hoping that the car in front, that Ferrari that came out of the pit lane earlier on in this lap, was on wet tyres, and I can use them as a bit of a yardstick as to how much quicker the wet tyres actually are, as that's the Ferrari there in the wall. So we're not going to be able to use them as a measure. Thankfully they reversed, as they were pretty much blocking the entire track. It was going to be very difficult to find a way past, but they reversed and gave us the room in front. Thankfully we got on through there without any issue. Obviously costing us a little bit of time, but I also think it cost P2 just as much time as well, so they didn't gain anything over me. But yeah, sticking it on the dry tyres, as you can see, all temperature completely gone. They're well under inflated now. Get a little bit of temperature back as we were braking there, but it's just going to disappear pretty much straight away here on the exit. The race engineer telling me to stay away from the curves, which I'm doing anyway, because in wet conditions they're wet and slippery. You don't want to be touching any exit curbs in any of the key traction zones. If you've got a bit more speed you can use an exit curb, it's not too bad, but they do become slippery in wet conditions. You can use apex curbs though, they're mostly fine, but there's not really any apex curbs here at Bathurst that you want to be touching even in the dry, so we're going to be staying away from them. As once again the Ferrari has come out of the pit lane, so obviously they teleported back to the pits. Just driven back out on the circuit again, but don't know whether they're on dry or wet tyres. So again, we're just bit by bit, lap by lap, walking the brake points back a good 20-25 metres or so, just to be a little bit safer, a little bit more cautious, because I'm very much aware that obviously the track is getting wetter as each lap and each minute passes by, so I'm going to have to lift a bit more through this right-hander here. Coming up over the top of the crest, holding a fairly tight line, trying to get close to the apex and just letting the car work its way through the corner, not really troubling it too much, just more trying to drive under the limit of the car rather than pushing the car and hoping that it sticks like a lot of drivers do. It's better to be safe than sorry here in these conditions, and I seem to be judging it just about right as we're keeping it out of the wall. We're not having any major moments, although there was a slight little bit there both in the mid corner and on the exit. Rear end breaking away slightly as the front initially understeered and then it re-gripped up, but the rear tyres were understeering at that point, or were lacking grip, and kind of rotated, and then on an exit as I was starting to apply the power, rear tyres once again spun up as well. But yeah, we seem to be judging it slightly better than some of the other cars behind, and we're pulling out that bit of a gap as we drop down into first gear this time, coming through the chicane of the chase. No real trouble on the exit of the corner. We've got 2 laps of fuel left, so we've obviously judged that right, but this is going to be the final lap of the race. As the timer is going to tick down to 0 on this lap, and obviously I am the race leader, so really do need to be smooth. I've got myself a nice buffer, don't really need to take any real sort of risk here on this lap. So climbing up Mountain Straight, once again up towards turn 2. Braking nice and early for the corner, getting the car slowed down and not really hustling it too much in towards the apex, just gently guiding the car in through the turn. Now coming into the Audi cut-in, lifting off nice and early, down into first gear. Not too much steering input on the exit, so I'm pulling the power down and just being very cautious with the throttle. As I said, no risks, just guide it through between the barriers. You've got a 3-second lead, you can afford to be cautious. It's the car sliding and moving around a little bit, just trying to keep a little bit of momentum up as we go and ride the outside curb. That car didn't quite tuck into the apex as much as I was hoping it was going to, but we managed to stay out of trouble. Car really struggling through the sections where it goes light over all the little crests and bumps coming down through the dipper, and here coming into Forest Elbow, a lot of understeer on the exit there. As I was trying to bring in the power, I was expecting the rear end to kind of slide round and help me through the corner, but it just understeered towards the outside wall. Thankfully we managed to stay out of that. So now we go down through into the chase one last time, braking nice and early, 170 metres before the corner, a good 50-60 metres before. Typically brake fighting with the rear end of the car as we were coming out the exit through the traction zone there. Now into the final corner for one last time. Slight kick of oversteer on the rear as a slight celebration, and we go across the start finish line to get yet another win here in LFM. And this was actually my first win as a Bronze Plus rated driver as well, so very, very happy with that one. Give a flash of congratulatory lights to P2 behind, who also had a good race. But hopefully you girls and guys enjoyed this race. If you did, please give it a like. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, and I shall hopefully get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Until the next video, have fun, stay safe, take care.